Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie. Alongside me tonight for our AFC East Preview, I've got my guys, Mr. Brett Bandick out in Winter Haven, Florida, rocking the TB12. Got my guy, Mike Zappi, San Antonio, Texas.
What's going on, man?
Mike Zappi, San Antonio, Texas. Sorry about that feedback. Just sharing our episode.
It's always good to repeat my name out there, so that way everyone knows Mike Zappi of San Antonio, Texas.
Just in case there were still people that weren't aware of your alias. Yes, you have grown quite a star here on the show. All right, AFC East. Very unique division historically, and I'm going to give a quick backstory as to why. In this particular division, you have the only NFL franchise that has gone undefeated for an entire season. That, of course, is the Miami Dolphins of 1972. You have a New York Jets organization that basically ushered in the Super Bowl era in terms of the spectacle, the first time that the AFL, now the AFC, won, and that helped usher in the Super Bowl into the spectacle that it is today. You have the Buffalo Bills, the only organization to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. And last but not least, you have the New England Patriots, who are tied for the most Lombardi trophies in NFL history, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So from a historical value, this is a very intriguing division. But I think what's more interesting is that for the first time in probably a very long time, I think you have a scenario where you potentially have 3 Super Bowl contenders all in one division. That doesn't happen every year. There were some huge offseason acquisitions in this division. You know, Jalen Ramsey is now a member of the Miami Dolphins. Granted, he's hurt. He's going to be impactful down the stretch. You have, in some people's eyes, the greatest quarterback in the history of the league, at minimum, one of the all-time greats in Mr. Aaron Rodgers, going to the Jets. And, you know, this is a fan base that is very thirsty for a championship. It's been over 5 decades. In New England, most would probably say, what does Bill Belichick still have to prove? For the sheer fact that he has the hardware. I think it goes without saying he wants to prove that he could win without the great Tom Brady, who has recently retired. And you have a Miami Dolphins team that this is truly the most continuity at the quarterback and receiver positions that we have seen since the days of Don Shula coaching up Dan Marino. So there is a lot happening here in this particular division. And as anyone who watches our show knows, we start from the bottom and we move it on up, which leads us to our first team, the New York Jets. 7-10 in 2022, which qualified them for 4th in the East. They missed the playoffs. Key addition, as I mentioned, quarterback Aaron Rodgers via trade. Wide receiver McCole Hardman, Super Bowl champion McCole Hardman, former Chief. Dalvin Cook, great pickup recently. Rodgers brought in a decent amount of former Green Bay guys. You've got his former tight end. You've got one of his best friends and personal confidants in Randall Cobb. You have Mercedes Lewis. That's the tight end. You also have Alan Lazard, a guy who a lot of people feel could have a blow-up year in this Jet offense. If I'm going to give a credit to what Robert Saleh has been building here, is that this is an organization that managed to win 7 games last year literally without any quarterback continuity. They had 3 really bad quarterbacks last year. In addition to that, they did have bright spots. You have Sauce Gardner, who was last year's Defensive Rookie of the Year. His teammate, Garrett Wilson, who was Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. And these are dudes that basically, you'll see it if you watch Hard Knocks. They go at each other every day in practice to be the best they can possibly be. I'm not a Jet fan, as you can see. I'm wearing the other team's hat from that stadium. But I must admit, there is a different kind of buzz around this Jets team that, quite frankly, I haven't seen You'd have to go back to when they hired Bill Parcells, where I feel that they truly had that Super Bowl aspiration and really felt that this could be a team that could really win the conference. It's been a long time for them. So I'm gonna circle it back and tell you what I think they're gonna do this year. But I want to start with you guys, get you guys warmed up. I'm gonna start with you, Bretsky. First of all, have you been watching Hard Knocks? That's my first question. And secondly, what do you think about what this Jets team has done?
I only watched the first episode. I haven't watched the second episode yet.
Same here. Same with me.
I haven't watched the second one yet, but they're portraying Aaron Rodgers as the good guy, as everybody knows. We saw him as the bad guy up in Green Bay. So it's an interesting take. I like the show. As far as what they're going to do this season, I mean, Richie, you hit it on the head. The most competitive division. Well, there's 3 competitive divisions, but this is by far, one of the toughest ones to predict. And I mean, it's going to be an interesting season to see where this all comes down to. But it's very similar with the AFC North. The NFC East. I mean, there's 3 potential Super Bowl teams. There's also 3, possibly 4 potential teams that can make playoffs out of this division, which I don't even know if that's ever happened. But there's potential there. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end, especially with everybody's schedule the way it's laid out. Division rivals. There's a lot of talent in this division and a lot of good coaching. So it's gonna be interesting to see where it pans out.
Your thoughts on the Jets?
I have them coming out first place in that division. I have them going 11-6, just because of the start of their schedule. Their first 6 games is going to be brutal. I think they play Buffalo Monday night. They have Dallas, Philly, KC, I believe. So I mean, they're gonna have a tough first 5-6 games. But after those 6-7 games, we'll see where they're at. We'll see what kind of team they are. If they can come out with 3 wins out of that gauntlet of a schedule that they got, then yeah, they're gonna be good. But I still have them finishing first place in that division, 11-6.
All right. Zappy, what are your thoughts on this team, and how far do you think Aaron Rodgers and Coach Robert Saleh could really go?
If you would have asked me this question a couple of weeks ago, I'd say this is a team that's going to finish in second place. When you factor in everything that's going on in Miami, obviously Jalen Ramsey out for the better part of the year, Xavier Howard under investigation. The New York Jets go on and acquire Dalvin Cook, and they are one piece away from having a complete team, and that is by addressing the tackle position. And if they do acquire the likes of a David Bakhtiari from Green Bay, the sky's the limit for this team. Even with how brutal their season starts, this team is very talented. And when you look back to last year, while they won 7 games with, very suspect quarterback play, their season really fell apart once Breece Hall got hurt with that ACL injury last year. Now you have Breece Hall coming back healthy, and you also input Dalvin Cook into that offense with Aaron Rodgers and the litany of receivers he has. I mean, this New York Jets team could very well be the best team in football this year. I have them winning 12 games because of the fact that they do have a rough start to the season, but I do believe Dalvin Cook is the difference for them to be able to win 12 or even 13 games this year, as opposed to 10, 11, or 12 at the max. So this team's going to be fun. I mean, when you're talking about their defense, without question, the top 3 defense, and you're talking about a receiver who's ready to enter the conversation as a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, a great duo of running backs, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it. I mean, they have everything there. Now they just need to go out and execute, and they'll be just fine.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree with pretty much all of what you said. I like the duo that Cook and Brees Hall bring, because you need two backs in that particular division, I believe, to be successful. From a fantasy standpoint, that's not what you want, because they kind of kill each other's numbers to a level. But we're talking about, the real thing, not fantasy. I think there's a legitimate competition who's going to emerge as the number two. I think it goes without saying that Garrett Wilson is the number one receiver. But there is a legitimate competition between Alan Lazard and McCole Hardman. And I believe that Lazard probably has the inside track because of the history with Green Bay and just all the time that they spent together in Green Bay. But I believe that Hardman is going to ultimately win it out. I just see a different kind of motivation with him this year that I didn't necessarily see when he was a member of the Chiefs. Now, if there's something to critique, and if there's something that I worry about, it's the offensive line. Zappy said it not too long ago on a previous show, but like at his age, you don't want Aaron Rodgers taking too many hits. Now the Bakhtiari, it's a rumor for now, but he is Aaron Rodgers' best NFL friend. You bring that guy into the mix, it gives them a different kind of presence on that O-line, on that locker room, on the potential of everything. Robert Saleh's a good coach, man. And I really think Nathaniel Hackett is going to get so much out of Aaron Rodgers, because it's more than just X's and O's. When you have the ability to play with someone that you genuinely love and get along with on that level of a deeper friendship than just a gridiron, I think it makes for a great work environment. And in this regard, I think Aaron Rodgers has everything that he needs to excel and potentially, finish his career on top, whether it's one or two Super Bowls. I think as long as he's the quarterback of this particular Jets team, I think there's a legitimate chance that these guys could do something special. Ultimately, I got them winning the division. I do directly agree with Brett. The reason I'm going to give them 6 losses as opposed to 5 is in part because of the gauntlet early on. I could see them losing half their games before October and then really getting hot. But I still feel that this is an 11-win team. I'm going to say in that ultra-competitive AFC, probably a 3 seed. But I think this is a team that come January is going to be in a position to represent this conference in the Super Bowl. They are definitely one of the teams that can do that.
A dangerous 3 seed. Very dangerous.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Zappy, would you say 12 wins?
12 wins, yeah.
12 wins? Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not a Jet fan. You guys know I don't like the Jets, but it's kind of hard not to pick a good team. I mean, you guys proved me wrong on Sauce last year. And Rich, you hit on it. I think him and Garrett Wilson are going to make each other great. You know what I mean? It's talent recognizes talent. You know what I mean? So they're going to be good together for a long time. I mean, I see Aaron Rodgers in there for at least 2 years. But it's we'll see what happens after these 2 years.
Brett won't come out as a Jets
but
fan
I think
until week 17.
Garrett Wilson and that what happened?
What happened is you just sound like Darth Vader. Repeat that, please.
I didn't hear what Zappy said.
I didn't hear what you said, so you were talking. You go first.
Oh, I just think Garrett and Sauce are gonna be there for a while, and they're gonna make each other great. So I mean, like I said, talent recognizes talent, and I think Rodgers will be there for at least 2 years. So I mean, we'll see where it goes after that.
Before we move it along to our next team, sorry, I just want to ask you this, Bretsky. Is this team winning the AFC this year?
No.
All right.
No, I have the Bengals going.
All right. Zappy, is this team winning the AFC this year?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this team has done enough. You have an excellent head coach in Robert Saleh. We know defense wins in this league. They have the defense to slow down the Chiefs. They have the defense to slow down the Chargers, the Bills, anyone in the AFC. That's the ultimate point. And you have a 3-time NFL MVP leading the way now for this team. Who they have everything in place. Like I said, it comes down to execution. They are not going to come out flat at all. Robert Saleh is not going to allow that to happen.
I got this team making the AFC title game and losing. I will not reveal who they lose to yet. That is fuck it. Let me just tell you. I think the Los Angeles Chargers are winning the AFC this year.
Whoa!
I know. Moving it to Gillette Stadium, the New England Patriots really need no introduction when it comes to winning. This is a team that has made winning a habit and something that people come to expect over the years. They've fallen on a little bit of more difficult times. In lieu of Tom Brady moving on to Tampa and then ultimately retiring. I believe that Bill Belichick is holding on for a couple of reasons. Number one is he wants to become the all-time winningest head coach. And number two, I do believe that there's a competitive drive, a healthy competitive drive, where he wants to make sure that he wants to outdo Tom Brady or at least equal Tom Brady. Now, granted, it's a lot harder for a coach to outdo a player because players join other players and other programs, whereas a coach has to oversee the whole fucking mission. 1 second, gentlemen. I keep hearing this clacking sound. Can somebody tell me where that's coming from?
I don't know.
I'm assuming that
I'm going to lose these headphones if this makes a difference. I'm just curious if it might be my headphones. I don't hear it now. Maybe it was me all along. All right, Patriots. I'm going to talk about some of the key things that they did this year. They brought in a Mike Gesicki, who I see as potentially some help for the run game because he is a very good blocker. Inside the red zone, anything's possible. He could snag a few touchdowns, but I don't necessarily think that that's his real call here. I think it's going to be predominantly to be a blocker and to be an extra help for the offensive line. Zeke Elliott, Zappy is incredibly familiar with this player. He had some great years with the Dallas Cowboys. And while a lot of his skills have eroded, I still view him as one of the premier blockers for running backs as well as one of the premier short yardage guys. I have a feeling that he's going to be a healthy contribution to this team. I think that when you are able to be alongside a guy like a Bill Belichick, as well as offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, the thing with Bill O'Brien, why I think the Patriots could be competitive, obviously their defense will keep them in games, is that he's creative and he can outcoach you. He can't necessarily have better personnel than you, but he does have the ability to outcoach you given some of his weapons. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, while I don't consider him a clean and concise number one, I do view him as a hell of a pass, as a downfield blocker. And he is a gritty competitor. Hunter Henry has to have a bounce back year. He had a very nice year one in New England, not the same year two. Ramondre Stevenson is on his way to becoming a premier back in this league. The reason why I actually think the Patriots might hang around a little longer than maybe if someone would have asked me a couple of weeks earlier is because the Miami Dolphins have some issues. And I'm going to hit on them in a little bit. But you have Xavier Howard, who is dealing with potential legal situation. You have a Jalen Ramsey, who is not going to be back till December. So those two particular things could potentially hurt them, although they do have more talent than New England. I'm going to give New England a better record than I would have, say, about 2 weeks ago. I got these guys going a very respectable 8-9, and I think that is a credit to Bill Belichick and who he is as a coach. But ultimately, I just don't think they have enough horses to make the playoffs. But I think they're going to be a respectable 8-9. Still, it will put them in fourth place. About a week or two ago, I would have said 6-11 or 7-10. But I do think they're going to win a couple of games that you don't see them winning. And I think that is a clear credit to who the coach is. And not for nothing, in my opinion, I really love the Christian Gonzalez draft pick. And I also think their defense on the whole is still an excellent unit.
Yeah. Rich, pretty much agree with you on the defensive side of the ball. I love the Christian Gonzalez. I think we had multiple guys last year that had I think we had like 6 guys that had multiple picks on our defensive side of the ball last year. Our defense kept us in games. I think you're going to see a lot of old school smash mouth, time possession, run the clock mentality this year.
That's the key. They got
they really don't have
to beat these more talented teams. They got
that's the kind of game plan they're going to have to going in. Because they just don't have enough firepower, to keep up with these teams that put up 40 plus points a game. If we get down 14, 17 points, we're not coming back. You know what I mean? But so they have to have that game plan every week where you literally have to take the ball out of the quarterback's hands, run the ball, control the clock, play defense. And, it's going to come down to, just third and short execution, and with Zeke back there.
You know something, Brett? The irony of it is that
What's that?
For years, that's how people used to play the Patriots to beat them. And now time has turned, things have changed. And now you guys, and I said this to you before, and I think you probably agree. When you're playing in a division that is driven by 3 incredibly talented quarterbacks, and you guys have the least experienced quarterback of the 4, the smallest of a resume, you have to do something better than what everybody else does. So to your point, you've got to be able to run the ball better, or at least just as good as these other guys. And I do believe that there is potential for that to happen, because I actually do think very highly of Ramondre Stevenson. And I do think that Zeke is going to be very focused, because I believe that Zeke has come to the realization that he is literally playing for his career. If he plays well this year, his career will continue. If he doesn't play well this year, this is his last stop.
We also have Ty Montgomery, who's third in our depth chart on running back, and he's a great pass catcher.
Very versatile. Had some good years.
I'm really curious to see what this kid Cunningham is going to do. I saw him in a preseason game. Very versatile player. I think both Bills are going to slowly put him into the game plan, and kind of put him in certain areas. Because he's a versatile guy. You can literally put him in the slot. You can put him in the backfield. He can even go in motion and jump behind under center. You know what I mean? He's a very versatile player. I'm kind of curious to see what Bill O'Brien's going to do with him. I see them going 9-8 and third in this division. Just for a litany of reasons. Number one, we missed the playoffs by 1 game last year, and Belichick has not missed the playoffs in consecutive seasons. So I'm looking for him to make a comeback and get the P-men back into the playoffs and see what happens.
Let me ask you a question, Bresky. With your 9-8 prediction, do you think that's enough to sneak in a very, very stout AFC?
Depends what happens in the AFC North. I think it all comes down to that division and what the records are. But if they get 9-8, I think they got a shot at getting in.
In my opinion, if they were in the NFC and they were 9-8, I think that would sneak them possibly. I believe in the AFC this year, the magic number for any wild card, you got to get 10. And the only way that I see a 9-win team getting in, it would be similar to the Giants last year. You got to have that tie. I could be wrong. That's my opinion. But I will say this. I just have a little better feel for them than I did maybe a week or so ago. And I honestly do think it's because with some of Miami's issues, they might allow a team like New England to hang around. Every division game matters. That goes without saying. But I think your two most important division games this year are specifically the two Dolphin games. Zach, what do you got for New England?
This team has no identity. We're still waiting to find out who this team is. I don't care that they went and signed Zeke. Where the Zeke has looked good every training camp, every year the last few years, but once it goes to game time, by week 5, he's worn down. He's a product of the running back situation that's going on. He was used and abused in Dallas, and now he's at the tail end of his career. This team has no identity right now. We don't know what they are. And to sit here and say that they're going to be a team that's going to be competitive, they'll be competitive, yes. But they don't have the offense to, like Brett said, fall down 14-0, 14-3, and expect to come back. They just don't have it. And in the AFC, the very stout AFC and the very stout AFC East, they don't have the team to do it. I stand firm and believe that this is Bill Belichick on the hot seat this year because aside from the years he's coached with Tom Brady, he has not been a good head coach. He is not. And you can go, I mean, yeah, you could say Mac Jones' first year. I'll give you that. But they did start 9-4, and then they just fell apart towards the end of the season. And then they got blown out in the playoffs. I'm not very high on this New England Patriots team right now. They don't have the quarterback that's going to lead them. They don't have the receivers to complement a good running game. Ramondre Stevenson, they're going to ask too much of him, in my opinion. Defensively, they're going to get tired. That's the way I look at this Patriots team. They're going to get tired.
My concern is your one main point about the 2-score differential thing. If I do agree with you on that level, this is not a team built to play from behind from 2 scores. This is a team that has to establish at least a possession lead and try to maintain that.
They're almost kind of Tennessee. You really think about it, you know what I mean? Because Tennessee gets down by 14 plus, they ain't coming back there, and Derrick Henry's out of the game.
Well, they did it multiple times where they did come back, and that was because they had Derrick Henry. You guys do not have a Derrick Henry. They continued giving the ball to Derrick Henry, and they climbed their way back in. So that is a good comparison. But no, I mean, the addition of Zeke is going to be big because of what he brings in the third down passing game. But if this team, one thing about them is if they're going to, in my opinion, be faced with a lot of third and longs. I don't see this team as being a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 type team. I see them being as a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 on multiple occasions. Yeah, the addition of Zeke gives me another win. I don't see them winning more than 7. The AFC East, even with the Dolphins' issues, they still have a very deep defensive backfield. Their offense is going to be what's going to be. How are you going to stop that offense? As long as, because we're talking about as long as the what ifs. I mean, if Tua stays healthy, you're not stopping that offense. That's the bottom line.
What is your final record for the Pats? You said 7-10?
7-10.
Before we move it along to the Dolphins, I do want to disagree with you on one thing. I don't think Bill Belichick was a bad head coach without Tom Brady. I just think he had a short sample size. This is the way I view that. The last Cleveland Browns coach prior to when they beat Pittsburgh back in 2020 that won a playoff game was Bill Belichick. He beat the Patriots, actually. He beat Bill Parcells. I do believe that if Bill Belichick was retained when the team ultimately went to Baltimore, he would have been very successful. It just would have been somewhere else. People talk about People
Sorry,
talk about great defenses.
my thing with Belichick is I think the game is too advanced for him now. We see it with all the greats. The game, it is constantly changing. And a lot of coaches don't adapt to that change, and they try to stick with the same philosophy, and it doesn't work. And that's the one thing I will say about Belichick. Well, I don't think his system is designed to win anymore in this league.
My issue with Belichick is not an X's and O's thing. I think he's still very much solid there. I think it's more of a personnel thing. I don't believe Bill Belichick should be in the GM seat. I've been saying that for quite some time. I believe Brett might even agree with me there. But I will say this, and I do find this interesting. Let's say if you're right, and let's say if he's on the hot seat. Out of all he's done for this organization, I don't see a scenario where they publicly humiliate him or fire him. I think it's the kind of thing where maybe him and Kraft sit down together and let him go out with his own dignity, let him retire.
They have their coach in waiting there.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. I talked about the GM hat. Bill O'Brien did both with Houston, and I would say it's a mixed review because on his way out, there were a lot of sketch moves that he made that I don't think a lot of people would be overly excited about him being a GM. But I also think that because he knew he was on the way out, he might have done a little sabotaging. I mean, that's just my recollection and opinion of the situation. But I don't think Bill O'Brien's a terrible head coach. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he was great when he was in Houston, but I don't think he was bad either. So take that as you will. It is a quarterback-driven league. It is an offensive-driven league. So I do understand to a level when you move on from a guy like a Belichick in the year 2023 why that could be a thing. But I will disagree with you in the sense of the game passing him by. I don't believe that to be true. I just think that you can't necessarily make a souffle out of a shit sandwich. And I just don't think that he has like the best roster right now. I gave him the 8th win out of respect for what I think he's capable of motivating a group of men. He's a damn good head coach still. I'll give him that. Gonna move it along to Miami.
Wait, hold on. Can I say something? Can I say something about Billy Bells here?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Rich, I agree with you on the X's and O factor. Like I don't think the game is more advanced than him. He's probably the only coach in NFL history that actually follows the rule books and uses that to his advantage. So
good shout. I tend to agree with you.
Don't that. The only thing I will say about, and he is a damn good coach, hence him stopping the game the other night when his player was taken off the stretcher. He's a good coach for doing that. Another point, he's cheap as fuck. He doesn't want to spend any money on his players. So
it's a formula.
Hence him, with the stat
to work. He's had a knack. He's had a knack for getting rid of guys at the right time, finding other guys that can fill those voids. But I will say, it's a never-ending debate, the Bill and Tom thing, and it ain't going nowhere. But one thing I will say about Bill Belichick is that no quarterback was given more top 10 defenses than Tom Brady. And Bill Belichick was the guy that engineered that. So before people say that, he hasn't done shit without Brady, I mean no disrespect to Tom, but I want to see what Tom would have did if he was drafted by like the fucking Arizona Cardinals or the Detroit Lions. It's a two-way street. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to be Team Bill because Bill helped these guys win 2 Lombardis. That's all I got on that. We're going to move it to Miami Dolphins. 9-8-22, second in this division. They lost in the divisional round with third-string quarterback Skylar Thompson. They actually overachieved last year, given the injuries to Tua. Jalen Ramsey, he's out until December, more than likely. Cornerback Eli Apple was brought in to replace him for now. Quarterback Mike White will be one of the 2 backups. Robbie Anderson, Brett loves that guy. He's part of this. Braxton Berrios, former New York Jet, he's in the mix. Teddy Bridgewater, he's a loss, signed with the Lions. Mike Gesicki is with Brett's Patriots. Eric Rowe signing with the Panthers. Greg Little signing with the Texans. Punter Thomas Morstead, he's now a Jet. and just going to let the viewers continue to read along on this ticker here. Short and sweet. I don't have a whole lot to say because I think with Miami, most of the obvious is the obvious. Tua Tagovailoa has to play at least 12 to 14. I'm going to say about at least 14 games for this team to finish where I think they should. Prior to the Dalvin Cook acquisition and prior to some of the issues with this secondary, whether it be an injury or personal matters, I would probably say I had this team winning the division. That is not the case right now. And now my bigger concern is if this team is going to even finish second. I do believe that with the Ramsey situation and with the Xavier Howard situation, it kind of narrows the gap with them in Buffalo. If going in, I thought Buffalo might have been a little worse because last year in 3 games, all 3 of those games really did go down to the wire. And the most important of those 3 games was a game where Tua didn't even play. I don't necessarily think from a personnel standpoint the Bills got that much better. They might get a little more healthier. You got to hope that Von Miller plays the whole year. We're going to hit on them in a minute. But going into this season, as of right now, I have a little more faith in the Buffalo Bills than I do in the Miami Dolphins. That can change as the season moves along and as things occur. I am optimistic that Tua is not going to get hurt this year. They arguably have the best 1-2 punch with Waddle and Hill. The intriguing thing that this team could do that can separate them from previous Miami teams, and Zappy and I both bitched about it, and I think you did too, as a matter of fact, they got to run the ball more. They've got 3 quality running backs now. Devin Achane probably has the highest ceiling. He's nursing a shoulder injury. Zappy drafted him. I drafted Mostert. It's going to be a hot hand for the most part, but I think going in, Mostert is the incumbent starter. I think as the season moves along, it's Achane. But their ability to run the football is going to dictate a lot of how far they can go when you're in the playoffs and it's time to get nasty. I got this team qualifying for the playoffs, but I've got them as the 7 seed. I think they're going to be a little lower than what everyone else is expecting them to be. I'm going 10-7 for the Dolphins because I do think that some potential absences are going to hurt this team. And while I never wish injury on anyone, I can't just naturally assume that Tua is going to suit up every week. So I think they're still a playoff team. I think they're a 10-win team. You know how I said a few minutes ago that I think 10 is the magic number for any wild card? I think they are literally going to be the 7 seed, and they're going to be that final team that sneaks in. But they are going to be a dangerous 7 seed because most 7 seeds do not have the kind of talent that a team like they have. And I still got mixed feelings on Mike McDaniel. I don't know how I completely feel about him as a head coach or a person for that matter. That the person part, that's not pertinent to what we're talking about here. But I got them going 10-7. Whoever wants at it next, jump in.
Yeah,
I'll finish.
Yeah, go. I also have them at 10-7, finishing at second in the AFC East. I mean, Rich, you hit it on the head, man. You know, it's the biggest question is Tua's health.
Yes, sir.
That is the biggest question. Can this man stay healthy? Can he stay upright? I learned that he was in jiu-jitsu and learning how to fall in some ways, to be on his legs or on his back so he wouldn't get hurt. Honest guy's truth, he's taking jiu-jitsu lessons. So we'll see where it goes, but at the same time, like, his health is the biggest concern. You said it before, the Waddle, the Tyreek Hill connection, the best 1-2 combo wide receiver in the league. You know, both the receivers are going to have, 1,300 plus yards. But I think they will improve on the running game. They didn't give the running game a chance last year. I think the ball the least. They ran the ball the least. Like, they didn't really give the running game a chance. You know what I mean? So
Jalen Waddle as an extension of the running game because of the little check down or the little design plays for them behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah. Once again, it just depends on Tua's health, man. If this guy can, stay healthy, play the 12, 13 games, then yes, absolutely, they are going to make playoffs.
In the event he gets hurt, do you have Skylar Thompson or Mike White? Who do you trust more out of those two options should Tua get hurt again?
From what I saw last year, Scott Thompson.
Yeah. Fair enough.
What I saw out of last year, I mean, they gave Buffalo. Was it Buffalo? No,
it was Buffalo.
It was Buffalo. Yeah, they put a lot of pressure on that team. I think they scored over 30 points on the road in a playoff game. You know what I mean?
I was kind of taken back and shocked, and when I saw Buffalo sneak that one out, the one thing that I took away from that was that was the last game Buffalo was going to win last year, because I said, Jesus, if the Dolphins did this with their third string quarterback, what the hell is Joe Burrow going to do to you? And we all saw what happened the very next week.
Yeah.
So your final record for them, Bretsky?
10-7.
So you're agreeing with me. Is that good enough to get them in?
Yeah, it's gonna get them in. I have them in second in the AFC East.
Second in the East and lower seeder for the playoffs. Zappy, you're not going to agree with us. I think you got this team winning 11 games just because I see that face. But what do you think?
The only thing I'm worried about with this team is their defensive passing game. That's it. I mean, they still have the ability to get pressure on the quarterback, which is going to help Eli Apple and Noah, however you say his last name. I trust Jalen Phillips. I trust Bradley Chubb. I definitely trust that team. Where I think Tyreek Hill, he's got the capability of hitting 2,000 yards receiving. Mike McDaniel made a living off of running the ball, especially with the 49ers. They brought him to Miami because
and you got some 49er former guys already that were system guys.
Yeah,
Mostert and Wilson.
But he didn't. I think Devon Achane is going to be the X factor for this team. I think this guy is about to. Like I've said it many times. He is Jamal Charles.
It's crazy from a body type. The league hasn't seen a guy like that probably since like a Warwick Dunn.
I was going to say Chris Johnson.
That's a good comparison.
I like Miami, but with the acquisitions that the Jets have made recently, I think that's now the difference where Miami doesn't get that 11th win. I actually also have them winning 10 games.
Oh, wow.
And making it. I think the AFC East gets only 2 teams in, and it's the Dolphins and the Jets. I think the Dolphins are also going to be a 7th seed, believe it or not.
Wow.
But if they did have Ramsey for the whole year, and if Xavier doesn't get suspended, then I think they could easily be competing to win the division, possibly winning 12 games, but just losing the tiebreaker. But right now I see them as a 10-win team. But that's the floor. I don't see them winning less than 10. But I do believe it'll be good enough to get into the playoffs. And, like they say, you just got to get in, baby. And after that, it's a whole new season.
Yeah, my New York Giants are familiar with that philosophy. We've done that a couple of times in the last decade or so. The Buffalo Bills, 13-3. They didn't play 17 games last year. That was what occurred in the DeMar Hamlin game. Key additions, Leonard Floyd, Poona Ford, Deontay Hardy, quarterback Kyle Allen. Damian Harris, I like this pickup. I believe that he's a guy that can help put games away. Backup quarterback Case Keenum is now a Texan. Wide receiver Jamison Crowder signed with my New York Giants. Linebacker Tremaine Edmonds is currently a Chicago Bear now. Right tackle Bobby Hart. That guy sucked with the Giants, by the way. Signed with the Lions. Wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie signed with the Colts. And as you see, these are some of the other additional movements of the team. I think Shakir is obviously going to claim the slot position with the departures of McKenzie. Beasley didn't play, and he eventually did mop-up duty in Tampa last year, if I'm not mistaken. McKenzie's gone. The big X factor, in my opinion, with how far this Buffalo offense can go and how consistent they can be, it's not Stephon Diggs. You know what you're going to get with him. And it's not Josh Allen. It's big game Gabe Davis. Because Gabe Davis, in my opinion, took a step back last year. He attributed some of that to nursing a foot injury for much of the year. If he can return to the form of, like, say, 2 seasons ago, and if the 1-2 punch of James Cook and Damian Harris can take a little more off of Josh Allen, then I do believe that this team can still finish in second place in this division and possibly make me a liar and win it. I think it goes without saying that their 2 most important games in this division are the 2 against the Jets. I mean, you could say they're Miami. You could say they're New England. I think it's the 2 Jet games. I think the NFL knows what they're doing also, lighting these 2 up on 9/11 on Monday Night Football to really kick it off prime time. And, the East in both conferences is lining up for prime time this year, Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football in the same stadium, MetLife Stadium. Giants will be hosting your Cowboys. We're going to talk about that more on another show. But I really do have a high belief in Josh Allen, even when a team might be a year older. Things are not necessarily as direct as, these guys should get there. I don't think it's like a clear path for Buffalo this year. But sometimes, and we've seen it with other teams, where they make it when it's not necessarily the clear path situation. I think this is a huge year for the head coach, because if they fall short, he could be the guy that needs to get axed. But I do have a high faith in Josh Allen. I think he's going to put up MVP numbers this year. And I think Von Miller is going to be very motivated. Their defense is not going to be as good as they were in previous years, but I still think they're going to be good enough. I got Buffalo also winning 11 games. But what separates them from the Jets this year is that the Jets are going to sweep them. I got Buffalo going 11-6. 2 of those 6 losses to the New York Jets, good enough for second. And I'm going to give them the 5th or 6th. I'm going to give them the 6th seed in the AFC. The reason I'm going to do that is because I think the AFC North draws a little better friendliness on the schedule than what both East divisions do this year. So that's where I'm going with that. Buffalo Bills will be a playoff team at 11-6 and more than capable of making noise. I mean, say what you want. Josh Allen, he's one of those few guys in this league that could really put a team on his back. And I do have a high faith in him.
Yeah, I think he's put the team on his back too much. Hence,
they got to diversify it.
Hence the injuries. I got 2 big concerns with this team.
Okay.
Number 1 is their defense. They did not improve on defense. Von Miller's getting older. And you saw what the Dolphins did to him in the playoff game at home. I mean, their defense just did not show up.
To be fair, though, they were missing a decent amount of guys in that game.
But they still weren't playing well. Yep. Leading up to that. Secondly, and I think it's getting overlooked, I just don't like what's happening with the chemistry of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs right now. He didn't show up to OTAs. Well, he showed up to training camp and he left the building. And they're saying, "Oh yeah, we're good." It's under the rug. I don't know. I mean, all this stuff happens behind closed doors. I think Stephon is doing the same thing that he did in Minnesota. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's after last year's playoff loss, his head hasn't been right. And I just don't know what this man is going to do come the start of the season. You know what I mean? Like, I don't trust the connection anymore. I don't know.
Very unwise of Stephon Diggs to get out of Buffalo because
they're not going to trade him. I mean, he signed a contract when it was for the season. Like
nothing. If he's disgruntled and they can get what they want for him, yeah, they can trade him.
It's
But
it's 2023.
I don't
That's a different thing.
I don't believe this is as bad as the media is making it out. I think the media needs to keep writing, and sometimes they go miles with horse shit. Guys argue sometimes. I mean, if that was the case, then Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor definitely stayed together longer than anyone expected. Now, granted, they didn't play on the same side of the ball, but they had their moments. Bill Parcells and Phil Simms had their moments. I think Stephon Diggs wants to win. I think that above all else is his motivation. And honestly, I think what happened last year was just a lot of competitive shit. And I do think that, there are some issues, but I don't necessarily think it's like going to tear this team apart. I think ultimately, if this team doesn't get there, it's because they're just not good enough.
Yeah, I'm completely the opposite with you. I have them finishing last in the division, 8-9. I don't trust the connection, and like I said, they didn't make any improvements on defense, and that division, and their schedule on top of that, like they needed defense, and they don't have a top 10, top 15, or even a top 20 defense.
Oh, Brett, you really downgraded them erroneously. They're not no bottom 10 defense, dude. That's a little harsh.
No, it's not.
No, that's a little harsh, Brett.
Not at all. I don't see it.
I can understand not putting them in the top 10, but I still got them anywhere between 15 and 20.
I haven't finished 8-9, last in the division.
All
right. You're up, Zap.
Week 18, Buffalo will be 10-6, traveling to 9-7 Miami. Winner gets the 7th seed, loser goes home. I think you see where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
But Buffalo, I do agree with Brett to an extent that this whole Stephon Diggs thing, it's kind of reminiscent of that of Antonio Brown. He's going to talk his way out of that team. He's going to do it. We saw him do it already once. What's to say he's not going to do it again? And in today's NFL, it's very common for players to get what they want.
I do think it's kind of bananas. I can understand wanting to get out of Minnesota. But why would you not want to play with Josh Allen? That's crazy to me.
Hey, winning cures everything. And when you're not winning, that's when all the stuff starts. Look, this Buffalo team really didn't do anything to say that they can be another 13-3, 12-5, 11-6 type of team. I like the addition of Dalton Kincaid. I think he will eventually be the number 2 option in the passing game. Gabe Davis, to me, a complete disappointment. Last year, you were supposed to step it up to be a true number 2, and you didn't do it. That tells me he's not going to do it at all. The slot receiver, yes, Khalil Shakur, wide receiver out of Boise State from last year's draft, who I like a lot. I like the addition of Damian Harris, but I think there's going to be some issues within the huddle that we're going to see Stephon and Josh not be on the same page all the time. And defensively, that's just, they didn't get younger. They got older. They didn't do anything to improve it, and especially when Tre'Davious White missed a lot of the season. He is back, but he's still a year older. Tremaine Edmonds is gone. There's just a lot of things. I think they're going to finish the season 10-7, tied with Miami. However, Miami will have the tiebreaker with a better division record. Buffalo will not make the playoffs, in my honest opinion. Which I could easily see that this could possibly lead to the divorce with Doug McDermott, because we've seen it time and time again where coaches, if you can't get over the hump and win that critical playoff game and then you start to decline, you usually get fired.
That's one thing that I could see occurring here. It's a war of attrition on so many levels, because while we did praise the 3 teams that we view as potential Super Bowl contenders, or at least get in the playoffs, each of these teams do have levels of concern. In the Jets' case, it's still the O-line. And, an injury to Rodgers could really rewrite what their trajectory is, because then you got Zach Wilson in there. An injury to Tua could really screw Miami. Plus, you already said it, Zap. I kind of said it too. the question marks in that secondary with missing two of their main guys potentially. In New England, it's do they have enough weapons? You and I, and even Brett to a level, don't completely agree that they have enough on offense. And as the Bills go, you have kind of pinpointed it on age and potentially a disruption between quarterback and wide receiver. We've seen the movie before with other organizations. Before we get out of here, I did want to make a quick mention. 6 years ago, my life was undeniably changed forever. Sadly, my father, who I mention quite frequently around here, passed away. Untimely, only 58 years old. I will say this. Were he alive today, I don't even know what he would possibly think or how he would wrap his head around that his guy Aaron Rodgers quarterbacks the New York Jets now. So, for one thing, on this day 6 years ago, I most definitely didn't think I'd be running a podcast. And number two, I never thought that on this podcast I'd be talking about Aaron Rodgers slinging the rock for the New York Jets. One of my dad's all-time favorite players, and it's impossible to cover Aaron Rodgers similar to prior to him, Brett Favre, and not think about my old man. But, 6 years later, I just want to say that your impact is still felt, Dad, and the fact that we still talk about you, I think, undeniably keeps you alive. And you are the inspiration for this show. There is literally no denying that.
Cheers, Pops. Boys.
Cheers.
Got my H2O.
Good boy, you're driving. We got about 3 minutes left on the show. Anything you guys want to add before we sneak out of here?
How do you
Potential for Matt Stafford.
Potential for Matt Stafford?
Potential for Matt Stafford joining the Patriots around trade deadline.
I'm going to say no for one simple reason. It's so super rare that quarterbacks get traded at deadlines. However, I could see him ending up on your roster next year for one simple reason. There aren't going to be a lot of teams that are in the market for a guy his age, but because your team is going to be in transition, he might be the perfect guy for a short while for your team. If it were to happen, I would say in the offseason after this year. As far as a deadline goes, no, I do not see it during a deadline because quarterbacks just don't get traded at deadlines.
I'll tell you why it's not going to happen at the deadline or this year. Money.
That too.
His contract is enormous.
Yeah, Patriots don't necessarily have
contract. Yeah, necessarily established that. Belichick's cheap as fuck.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a Band-Aid stopgap next year, I don't think it's out of the question because Matt Stafford could still play. But the weird thing about the Stafford contract is that I actually believe that the kind of money he makes actually plays him out of certain situations around the league. And that could ultimately lead to his retirement, stepping away from the game, not necessarily if he could still play. That's just my personal opinion. Something similar, I'll be honest, Brett, something similar like that happened to Eli. I don't think it was a matter if Eli could still play. I think it was Eli coming to the realization that he might have been the brunt of some bad jokes because when father time comes for you, it don't discriminate.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So in Eli's case, I think that Stafford could still play, but I don't. The Rams danced with the devil and made some shit investments to make sure they won that one Super Bowl. So at least they got their ring. That's all I can really say. Zappy, what's on your mind? We got a minute left.
No, to kind of piggyback off what you said, we saw the Bucks do it. We saw the Rams do it. Now we saw the Jets do it.
It's the trend.
It's the trend. And if the Jets come out and win the Super Bowl this year, then we're going to see other teams that are that quarterback away that are going to go spend the draft equity to acquire the likes of, I don't want to say Matthew Stafford because I think he's got 1 year left, but you know what I mean. But anyways, that helmet, it just doesn't fit you, Brett, with your little head. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like one of the Peanuts. But you
He
know
looks
what?
like he's
That
looks like
is a
he's filming
dope,
for Little Giants.
that is a dope
My mama.
comment. For the